This is Talking My Walking. I am Rodrigo Ribeiro, and today I'm going to talk about language, language framing, and narratives, and why it is imperative to understand how it works, how it shapes who we are, how we perceive the world, and everything else. Anything we believe, the way we perceive the world, the way we perceive ourselves, um, I mean, the way we understand the society and organize the society, literally everything. No, it's about goes through language framing and narratives. There is nothing outside of this that is. I mean, it doesn't matter how strong are our beliefs. They become beliefs through the process of language framing and the power of narratives. That's how we need to understand the human nature, the human condition. There is nothing. It's not. This is so important that we cannot understand the human condition without understanding language framing and narratives. This is because what is propaganda? How can other people manipulate? How does other people manipulate us? How can we be language framing and narratives are the way we make sense of the world, that we find purpose and build meaning. I mean, we have emotions and feelings. We have intuition and insights, but I mean, there is the social emotions. What are the social emotions? The social emotions are already the basic emotions. They are part of our of our congenital structure, okay, or heritage. But the social emotions are already what they mean. They are not just because we are social beings, of course, that is very important, but because we are cultural beings, which means that our world, our reality, is based on language framing and narratives. Without the prejudices, without the prejudices, without the values and principles and rules and all the beliefs that we have, our social emotions are related with them, are linked to them. They are not separated, because that's if we feel disgust about something, there is a cultural and social component to it that is explained through a narrative, through an idea, through a moral narrative in order to give it a sense. So, to understand the human condition, it's not about trying to explain it that we are spiritual beings incarnated, or we are only matter that explained by biology, and we the self is the spirit, and the self is this and that. It doesn't mean that we are not. That's based on feelings. For example, people can believe that they have a soul. That soul is eternal, or the spirit is eternal. So it can. There are different religions and philosophies that you can go through reincarnation, or it doesn't matter. So therefore, your material existence is relatively unimportant, which to me is a mistake, because it seems like it's only the vehicle. It's only something that we use in order to become a better person. I don't know how exactly that works, because what I really see, and that's the point why narratives are so important, is a social system, is a society and civilizations that are built, that are organized in ways that are not helpful in helping us to have a spiritual life, to be that we become more more empathic and compassionate. But it's exactly the opposite for most of us, that we become more narcissistic, egotistic, individualistic, and it's only about me and myself, me and myself, and that is more or less the motto of our society, of a capitalist society that is individualistic, tells us that we have to be focused on our own interest, to pursue our own interest, and in the primacy of wealth accumulation, profit maximization, and private property supremacy or primacy. And then that are supposed, how can we believe that this system that makes us, transforms us into conspicuous consumers, that we are very shallow and short-sighted, that we do not seek any kind of depth of understanding, that we are imbecilized by ubiquitous infotainment. Doesn't matter, conventional legacy media or internet or alternative media, it's everywhere. It's basically our source of information and knowledge is through infotainment. It's just to entertain you. Not only to entertain, but to colonize us, to instrumentalize us, to divide us, to atomize us, to tribalize us, not to make us more conscious, to develop our critical skills and the critical analysis. No, not to understand our language framing and the narratives, how important it is, how crucial it is to understand language framing and narratives in order to understand our human condition. No, it's exactly the opposite. And we see it is ubiquitous, it is everywhere. There has never been any other time in history where weapons of mass deception, propaganda of all kinds and types has been so pervasive at every level of society, every field of knowledge, everywhere, literally everywhere. But that reality is not merely outside of us. That reality lives in our subconscious minds. Of course, every one of us have a different life experience, and we have different personalities, the combination of our personality and temperament and all the rest that goes with it, our idiosyncrasies, gives us a profile that no one else that is unique. That's why we are not exactly replicas of each other, not even real twins. Monozygotic twins are copies of each other. They can look like each other. They have differences because the software, it's not exactly the same. Because there are differences, they are experiencing it. If they are separated organisms, they might live the same experience, but since the same experiences go through different organisms, the basic emotions and the social emotions and all the cognitive affective processes have little differences. And over time, those differences, of course, they will transform, they will build up a different identity, a different psychosocial cultural identity. But it doesn't mean that they do not share a lot. But that's why. But there is different sensibilities and everything. Everybody knows that. But in my humble opinion, I really see. I mean, people do not understand language. It's not about theory of language or linguistics. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not the scientific side of how do our brains produce language and if language is innate or not or blah blah blah. I'm not talking about if Chomsky is right or not, or if there is. I mean, it's not about that. It's about to understand language framing and narratives as the pillars of our human condition, which means that we cannot understand belief systems. We cannot understand life and reality if we do not understand have a comprehensive understanding how language, framing, and narratives work. Because we are talking about perception and how our perception is important. Our perception is important to shape everything, to shape behavior, to shape everything. No? So this is not... we are so used. We are so used to language. We are so used to everywhere we look. Because I mean, I'm not going to talk about today. I'm not going to talk about patterns and paradigms and things like that. But that's how it works. Language is what helps us to give meaning to patterns and relations and identify them. You know, that's not... There is knowledge that we acquire by experience and that we share with each other. That what its culture is about. That there is a cumulative experience that is kept in a community, in a nation or a country, and it's shared, and it's going to evolve, and it is about the recognition, the learning to recognize patterns, the ones that are so all types of patterns that are important for survival, but are also important to build the understanding of life, the meaning and the purpose, and the rules of how we relate with each other and with nature as well. That is the principles, the values. Everything is conveyed through language and narratives. So, but we take it for granted, which means that we do not, we just assume that is, because it's so natural, that it doesn't seem that we need to have a more analytic approach to it, to know better how it works and how it affects how we perceive ourselves, and I mean, that's exactly that's how profound it is, because we really can believe anything and everything. It doesn't even have to be logical. Sometimes it can be an absolute absurdity, as long as it makes sense for us for some reason. I mean, we will accept it as truth, or at least accept it as valid, and that can has a huge impact on how we live, how we relate to each other, what kind of political views, what kind of people we support. I mean, And that is, and that cannot be taken lightly. At least that's how I see it. That because it is not a zero-sum game. It has huge effects, consequences in our practical lives. And by the way, I believe, this is a belief of course, but it's a belief that I think is it makes sense, at least to me, that we need to build spirituality. Our spiritual being does not exist. It is built. Our spiritual being, our soul, which I would like it to be, there can be a lot of words that to me are not important, alter ego, our higher self. You can use it. It is not important. The importance is that we need a society and a civilization that exactly rewards the fact that we become better beings, because compassion, empathy, cooperation, reciprocity, fraternity, and solidarity, they need to be trained. They need to be part of the dominant narratives, because there are dominant narratives that are not built by us. They are built by other people, professionals, in order to shape how we, the majority, perceive reality. That's called perception manipulation, call it propaganda, call it whatever you wish, is just how it works. So, when we think about wars, conflicts, the fight for power and control, we need to understand it through the lenses of there are people. I always go, it is a very important, it is one of the most important quotes that I always like to quote, or a citation. When plunder becomes a way of life for a group of men in society, through the course of time they will create a law to authorize it and a moral code to glorify it. Frederick Bastiat. What this means is that if we want to have a society where narrative framing, language framing, and narratives come from democratic accountability and participation, the law, the law that authorizes whatever it is, and the moral codes that glorify whatever it is, comes from us all as a collective, to understand our condition, to understand as deep as possible the language framing and our language framing and narratives shape who we are, and how they can be used by certain groups, privileged groups. How did they become privileged? Exactly by framing narratives by framing language and creating narratives to make us obedient, make us followers, to transform us in peons, in useful idiots. It does have nothing to do. We can have a sophisticated culture, music, arts, and like, yeah. But it doesn't matter, because if we do not understand the nature of our condition and how language framing and narratives are so important, are ubiquitous in shaping who we are and how we relate to each other, how we comply, how we obey, how we are so easily deceived and transformed into cannon fodder. I mean, and this is everywhere, because this is very easy to observe, but nevertheless, we all participate, or we go along with the cacophony that is also, again, I'm sorry to use, that is omnipresent. This time I will use the word omnipresent. Therefore, we just respond. We do not have any agency. We just have adapt. We just are in the mode of reacting. And we are victims. We are victims of this system, because we are raised by it. We are not, we are not even raised to have any agency. We are raised to focus, okay? That you need to compete with others. We need to be better than others, but to be better in what? You need to become an expert. You need to become a professional. You need to become part of the professional managerial class. You need to be an owner. You need to succeed in business. You need to be entrepreneurial. All the things that everybody that is part of the dominant narrative. So we are not educated to be free citizens. Forget about that. We are educated to operate within certain parameters that if we follow them, we might succeed, which means that we have more possibilities and opportunities to get good jobs, good paid jobs, to have a career, successful career, and then we just prepare ourselves to fulfill a role, or to have a paper, to fulfill a role, or to have a function within the rules that have to comply with rules that were not that we are not involved. Because the capitalist liberal democracy are an illusion. We have some rights, I do not deny it, it's not, but you can see that how easy it is. Just go, just out, we need to, these days, what's the difference? What's the difference between an authoritarian regime or even a dictatorial regime and the regimes that, and how the regimes of the Western countries, the European countries, and America and elsewhere are operating? What are they doing? No, just think about what the, we do not have freedom. We have freedom just like in a dictatorship. In any dictatorship, if you just do not if you just do not have any political, you just put politics aside, okay, you just take care of your business and you play by the rules. So you just don't see the dictatorship. You are not going to feel the dictatorship. It's exactly the same what we are. That's exactly the same. If you become political, which we should be political, because political agency is essential to participate, to be part of the demos. You immediately, they come immediately with the stick to let you know that you should know your place, and you can be arrested. You can even disappear to some black hole somewhere in the world. Does it sound like democracy? Of course not. Because it is a managed democracy. It is not even a representative democracy. It's representing they are not the ones that are supposed to represent us, they do not represent us. So, going back to language. There is no understanding whatever kind of, however you interpret the world, whatever you believe, whatever you think you are. Literally everything. It has been shaped, crafted by others most of the time, and we just have the possibility. That's what we do. We have to. In some cases, we have the opportunity to put the puzzle together. Okay, which means that we at least use our brains to use the pieces and put them together until it becomes a puzzle. It becomes becomes a order, something representing a certain order, with patterns and paradigms and all what is required to be pictured as an order, something that is that has been created, in this case by human beings. In many cases, we don't even do it. We just swallow the pill. We are literally colonized because it just happens through processes that do not require our conscious thought, our conscious reasoning. It just requires us to be exposed to the experience. And everything is an experience, you know, it's an organic experience. It needs to go through our senses, our organs of sensory, you know, and then they go to our brains, which is an organ. That's why the experience is organic, is not spiritual. That's why it's wrong to understand us as being, as having a soul, because in my opinion, what we should think, and it would be better for the humankind, that we should feel the need to build that soul, to build that spiritual being, and by the same token, to look around us in nature and see that spirituality everywhere. And spirituality is not about it's not about perfection. It's about a process that you see it, you feel it, you perceive it as a process, as something that we are, that is part of our lives. That's how they get us into the organized religion, because it is easy to perceive that if you go every day and if you pray and if you repeat by mimicry and repetition, you become that identity. You will build that identity, but it's not yours, because it was given to you by others. But it becomes organic. It's not just a spiritual thing. It's organic. It goes through biological processes. It exists in the form, it exists in as implicit long-term memories that are part of our cognitive affective systems. And we and becomes who we are, but we just become that it was our choice. We just think it was due to our choice, but that is very little choice, because most of it was just to fulfill a need, because we have needs, we have spiritual needs, we have we have ethical needs. We have aesthetic needs. You know, we are a very complex organic system, and we need many things. We need as our experience goes through, or the building of our being needs to go through a lot of different experiences. In order to fulfill ourselves, in order that our lives have meaning and purpose. But that's again why we need to understand language framing and the role of narratives in building that process, in shaping our identity, in shaping how we perceive the world, how we understand the relations with other people and with nature and with everything else, with the cosmos. And I don't want to be pretentious, but that's the reality. I see people that's missing almost everywhere. I mean, I can, there are people that understand it, I know it. But then we do not give it the relevance that it deserves, because how I see it, it is central for us to understand who we really are, what's the human condition, what life should be about in the spiritual sense, in the human sense, because it's about being humans, and developing ourselves as human beings through the participation in society, through the building of an economy, because we need an economy. But what kind of economy? What kind of an economy and political system? What kind of political economy and political system is needed to help the process of building a spiritual world, materially based, okay? Instead of fantasies, instead of illusions about a human nature, because when people, the many religions and philosophies, and when you go through it, and you just see this was tailored to for obedience. This was tailored to make people obey. This is not about freedom. This is nothing to do with that, and that's what we need. We need narratives to free us. I mean, I don't know. I would like to have some feedback. I mean, I know nobody cares about, who am I? Where is my PhD? Yeah, it's the PhD of life. It's when you dedicate your life and you see your life as an experience to understanding life itself, and not to that you understand your life as just business. We can go through life just perceiving ourselves as a business. It's just we sell ourselves for a salary, and then you can buy the stuff we need and the stuff we do not need at all, just to impress. Or you go like, you can buy the stuff we don't need with the money we don't have, to impress people we don't like. That's a good one, isn't it? I do not remember who was the author, but it's a good one. Because again, it's true. That's nothing to do with freedom. It's about consuming and being dependent and addicted to convenience. Not about building a spiritual being, building a soul on this earth through an economy and a society that follows principles and values and rules that rewards it. And people should understand That's what we really need. But this is part of a roots movement. Because if we transform these reflections into elitistic reflections for academics and experts, and it doesn't matter that they can help us with theories, but it just then we always are required to obey and follow, not to be agents. And that's what's missing. We need to have agency. Okay, so I'm going to end it for today. Thanks for listening, and I will be back soon.